Hello, everybody. This is Bruce from Oregon with the Bruce from Oregon Show. It might be the first, it might be the last. We're continuing our series on management best practices today. It's a frosty day here in Oregon, just outside of Portland, Oregon. Got a little frost on the steps, a little fog out there in the field, some ambiance. It's a cool day. It is February 4th. So today's topic was suggested to me by a channel member because I was talking to them about how in my team, when I ran a team in the tech industry, the team I ran would have meetings, very specific meetings, without me present. Like I wasn't invited. I was not. I didn't even have it on the calendar. I didn't know when it was. It was a big secret. And I wanted to talk about why that can be a good idea and how that can work for you as a manager to develop a stronger team and a more efficient team. And I found an article by a speaker and writer on the internet that we can go over that talks about some of the reasons, in addition to the reasons I might have, about why this is a good idea. So today we're joined by our guest cat, Excited Tiger in the browser. But what we're going to do is we're going to hop on over to this blog from Leanne Davey, who appears to be let me see, where's my mouse? A speaker and author who has not climbed Mount Everest. I mean, yeah, I'm with you on that. But anyway, I think this person is advising teams on how to achieve high performance, worked with teams from front lines to the boardroom. Oh, wow. And anyway, so there's an article here. It's called 6 Reasons to Meet Without Your Boss Present. So I'm going to get into that. And in my experience, what was interesting is, especially when you have a team that has a mix of some senior folks and some more junior folks, maybe they're newer to the team in terms of experience or educational background, and you have a mix. This can be very useful for your team leads or someone in your team to have a regular meeting with other team members, sort of like a staff meeting, but without the manager present. And I think what is very valuable here is the idea that the newer team members can ask the more senior team members some operational questions. Questions like, how do we go about doing this? Is this the usual way this happens? If we want to do XYZ, is that how it happens here at this company? What is the work culture? If I want to do XYZ, is it okay? If I have a question that I want to ask to the manager, is it okay? These type of things, your team members may be uncomfortable bringing these questions up to you in one-on-ones where it's just you and the employee, or in a staff meeting with the rest of the team present, because they may just be intimidated by the whole scenario of, okay, now I'm in a meeting with a manager or maybe multiple managers, some kind of all hands stand up meeting or something. It may just be intimidating for them. Okay. And you have to have this mindset as a manager or as a higher pay grade employee. Maybe you're an individual contributor, but you have a fancy title. You're up there closer to the boardroom, as they say in this article. That can be intimidating to some other employees. And when the employees don't have that sense of psychological safety, it's going to be harder for them to have good ideas, be creative, and then voice those creative ideas or opinions in the meetings. So you want to have different types of meetings that people can go to, one-on-ones with your employee as a manager employee, stand-ups where the upper level manager are providing pass downs or important corporate information, quarterly financial information, that kind of thing. And then these operational team meetings. And so what I found for my team it was very interesting because I had the quarterly objectives that I would set every quarter with my employees. Okay. And when I was meeting with them, we would go over these quarterly objectives, or maybe there was a work tracking system for the project we were working on. And we would go over the tickets or the items filed in that work tracking system. Now, what my employees developed sort of grounds up was a weekly meeting, or maybe it was a bi-weekly meeting, but whatever cadence you think is best, where I was not invited. I was the manager. And what they would do is they would look holistically at their own individual things from these quarterly objectives or from these tickets. And they would do, maybe you could call it a scrum or a session where they hash out what all those things are. And they would take a look at it and they would say, look, does someone have too many tasks right now at a finer grain level than the quarterly objectives or the individual project tickets that the project managers might be looking at? Okay, so they're breaking these tasks down into even simpler steps. Like, oh, I need to make a spreadsheet. I need to check in a bug fix to a code database. Maybe these things are so opportunistic or finer grain steps in the bigger ticket that it doesn't make sense to have them written out in those larger systems. So they're making to-do lists, personal to-do lists, and going over those collectively without me present, just so they can figure out like, oh, is someone stuck on one of these things and they don't know who to ask or they don't know how to ask the question because they might be intimidated in terms of, you don't want to look stupid in front of your manager, right? Sometimes it depends on your work culture and whether you feel comfortable talking about maybe difficult things with your direct manager. Sometimes that's easier, sometimes that's harder, even if you have a great manager. So this is something to keep in mind. Okay, so let's go through these 6 reasons to meet without your boss present and see if I have any sort of examples that, I don't know, vibe with these. Okay, scenarios that are better without the boss. Yeah, reflect on the discussions you've had in your team meetings over the past couple of months. Can you think of conversations that would have made more sense or been more effective if your team leader hadn't been in the room? And a corollary to this is, going back, I said you need some different types of meetings, right? You need the pass down meetings. Maybe you need one-on-ones with your manager. I never ran a staff meeting. I never ran this sort of meeting where it's just the manager and the direct reports, because I always found that those type of meetings just devolved into a series of one-on-ones with direct reports anyway, just with an audience. And it's like the audience may or may not be interested in that information. And if you aren't interested in that information, which is often the case, especially with larger teams, it's just a waste of time. I found it to be useless. And it was a bit performative. And if there's information that needs to be transferred to your team from the manager, you should use things like Teams message boards, emails, other ways, one-on-ones, to transmit that information. So if half my team needs to know something, I'm fine transmitting that information in one-on-ones rather than a singular staff meeting. I'm okay as a manager doing that multiple times because I think it's more effective for the employees to make their time very efficient versus just worrying about making my time more efficient. Because my team is large, if I make them more efficient, it's geometrically more efficient than making myself efficient. Okay. Number 1, get traction on an issue. The first and most innocuous reason to meet without the team leaders, do heavy lifting of getting an idea off the ground without the leader's time. You know how scattered an early phase meeting can be. People throw out disparate ideas of differing relevance. Yeah, I mean, get traction on an issue. And this could be 2 things come to my mind. So number 1, if you're going to brainstorm, if you want to brainstorm, I think what can happen is if you have the manager present or the team lead present, they may go directly into like evaluating those ideas and like trying to triage those ideas. And when you're doing brainstorming, you definitely don't want to start culling out ideas or evaluating ideas right away. You just want to foster the generation of ideas in brainstorming. And this can be easier when the individual contributor employees meet together to do some basic brainstorming. The second one, what is the second one? So how scattered an early phase meeting can be with different relevance. Well, it could just be that the employees have questions about the project that maybe seem too simple. Like, okay, our team is going to work on, Project Alpha. And you may have team members who are just like, I don't even understand the basics of Project Alpha. A meeting without a manager or a team lead, and just a few more experienced employees, there may be other team members who've worked on other projects like that before. They may be able to answer questions very quickly and without the idea of somebody looking over your shoulder. So that could be good. And generating recommendations. Yeah, I mean, sometimes what you want to do is you want to sort of figure out what the problems are going to be before you get to the point where a manager is telling you what to do. So if your manager says, hey, we're all going to be working on Project Alpha next quarter, if you know what some of the challenges with that project are, you may want to brainstorm with the team. Hey, do we agree these are going to be the challenges in this next quarter? And hey, let's try to identify some potential solutions or improvements to how the process works. And then we can present that to the manager so that we short circuit, running into problems in the middle of the project. And a lot of times, as a manager, what I'm looking for in my team, especially a technical team, in terms of advancing them to the next pay grade, is can they see the problems coming and identify a solution before management tells them that there's a big problem and they need to develop a solution? So don't wait to be told what the problem is, but be a little more proactive in thinking about what could those problems be and how could we solve them. Now, you certainly don't want to go off the rails and just start doing something that's not your job, like fixing problems that aren't your job to fix. But if you can have this mindset of finding these things and identifying them, and also identifying solutions, because what I've seen in the tech world is it's very easy to identify problems. Everybody's got a problem to gripe about. The more interesting thing is figuring out if you think that problem is a showstopper or not. Do we really need to do anything about it, or can we mitigate it? And if we do need to do something about it, what will we do? That's what I want to see as employees develop with their experience over time. And it takes a while to develop that experience. So just keep that in mind for your teams. Let's see. Number 2, work through contentious conflict. Suppose your team is wrestling with issues that feel personal or emotional, or getting to the root of the problem will require team members to be vulnerable. You might be better off without your boss present. Yeah, I suppose so. For example, I don't know if there's, you have team A and you have to work with team B on this Project Alpha, and there's tension between these two teams. You may want to, I don't know, just sort of have a gripe session about it with some of your other peer team members because they're going through the same thing, as opposed to just complaining to your boss about it in front of everybody else. That could be useful. The other thing is you may get some mentoring from your other team members instead of your manager on some of these difficult conflict questions or these open-ended questions where you're trying to understand things. Your manager is really there to manage your work and help you with all the procedural things you need to do at a job and help you to some extent with mentoring and coaching. But that doesn't mean that your manager should be your only mentor or coach. And as a manager, you should also understand that your employees may need other mentors or coaches who are not you. And you may want to facilitate that sort of thing, whether it's your entire team meeting without the manager, or whether it's people in your team who are more senior meeting in one-on-ones with people who are more junior to do some of that mentoring and coaching for these contentious type of topics. Because sometimes, the manager's not going to have all the answers. You may find the answers from somebody else in the team or in the company who you trust. Okay, so that's what's going on there. 3, encourage debate and dissent. I think this is really the one that I was getting to before with some of the, without the manager present, you can have tougher questions come up, or questions that employees think that they might not be comfortable asking with the manager or the upper level managers present. We won't throw each other under the bus. Agreement that seems to include not disagreeing with one another. Foregoing dissent and debate is a risky way to go. Yeah, I mean, that's a sort of cultural thing where what you want to do is you want to test your ideas. So if you have a position or an idea or an opinion and you want to see if it's good, you have to test it. You can't just sort of market it. Oh, I think we should do feature XYZ in the next project because it's the best thing since sliced bread. You have to put that up to the test to see if other people can sort of take the devil's advocate position and argue against it. And doing that kind of testing may feel uncomfortable depending upon the work culture that you're used to from your previous jobs or your educational backgrounds. Your employees may feel more comfortable doing that kind of testing of their ideas without a bunch of managers present. A lot of times, what I've seen is there will be meetings set up or a work group set up to go over these ideas and to have other people from other teams sort of check it or evaluate it or review it, right? And going directly to that as step one could be very intimidating for your employees and your team. So if you can do sort of some of this vetting or this, one of your team members has a PowerPoint proposal, review it first with the direct team before you go to the big peer review meeting. That may help them psychologically in terms of getting to the point where they're comfortable with debate and dissent. Okay. Number 4, problem solve on what's not working. Does it feel risky to admit in front of your boss that something you're accountable for is not working? This is a big problem. And I think I was mentioning in one of my previous videos, maybe it was about roles and responsibilities. There's always this sort of mindset shift. Most team leads or high-level individual contributors or first-level managers even will know when things aren't working. They'll know when there's problems. Like, hey, we were supposed to do this thing in 1 quarter and it's going to take 2 quarters. Or, oh, we just found a huge bug in this one particular area of the project. And the problem is, as you go up the chain of command with the management hierarchy, there can be like a telephone game. And because the upper level managers want to present a good picture to the, executive staff, the board of directors, the CEO, CEO -1, whatever. And things will get murky or it'll appear like, okay, oh, sure, we've got a lot of open bugs, but we've got a process in place to work on that or something. And they may not understand how dire a troubling situation could be, or how inaccurate a schedule might be. And so if the first level manager or the team leads or the individual contributors take that and filter it all the way down, you're going to lose resolution on what those issues are right away, which is going to be very bad for the project because you don't want to get to the middle or end of a project and suddenly these problems come up and everybody's aware of them. You want to make the problems known and socialized as early as possible, as transparently as possible, so that we can do something about it sooner rather than later, because doing something about a problem sooner rather than later is more effective. And this is sort of tension between what's best for the project and what's best for me. Like, I don't want people to think I've introduced a bunch of bugs. So I don't want to tell anybody about all the bugs or the bug reports I have that haven't been fixed yet. But if that's reality, we have to face reality and figure out a way to socialize that and find a problem, fix to that problem earlier. And meeting with a team without the manager could be a good way to do that. It could be, if I'm feeling like I've introduced a whole bunch of bugs, what do I do? If I have a meeting without the manager, I can get some peer feedback. Maybe these guys can help me fix those bugs and we can mitigate the problem so that when we do talk to the manager about it, we have more of a plan in place, or maybe we fix some of the bugs before we go and talk about it in more detail with the upper level managers. So instead of faking it till you break it, get together without the boss, specifically allocate time for sharing emerging issues and helping each other identify potential solutions, because you may be able to start working on these problems or at least have some support. When you go into a problem with other colleagues, you're going to psychologically feel like you can solve problems and be more confident than if you're facing all these problems alone. So as a manager, you need to understand that's where your employees are coming from. They don't want to tackle these problems alone. They may not feel comfortable talking directly to you. So facilitate a scenario in which they can work on these things right away. Number 5, prioritize what you need from your leader. Sometimes you might find your leader isn't giving you what you need. Leader letdown comes in many forms. Oh dear. When you have a leader who provides insufficient clarity on assignments, fails to make trade-offs, spreads everyone too thin, is indecisive. Yeah, I mean, I've seen this over and over again where, an organization has to have an org chart. They have to have somebody who people directly report to because there's paperwork that you have to do. There's annual pay increases you have to do. Somebody has to do that bureaucratic work, and they just take somebody who doesn't really want to be a manager and they make them do it. And they're like a reluctant manager as opposed to somebody who wants to be a manager. And if you find yourself in this situation, it may be useful to have meetings without your manager, especially if you have one that's always too busy and can never make the time to meet individually with you as often as you would like. And you can set up a structure, or the team can set up a structure where you meet without that manager. It could be a group of managers meeting without the second level manager. It could be individual contributors meeting to scrum out issues. And, this way you can figure out, what really do you have to escalate to your upper level manager who's like a reluctant manager. And maybe you can get some of that other management work done sort of from a grassroots efforts. Or maybe there's a team lead who wants to be a manager in the future and they're going to develop these skills now in this meeting without a manager before they are promoted to that job. This could be a good opportunity for them to sort of exercise those muscles. Number 6, provide feedback to one another. Okay, returning to the I won't throw you under the bus. If you don't throw me under, your team is likely not being candid with one another about the impact of your behaviors if the boss is always in the room. You bottle up frustrations, let resentments fester, and give up on having a great team in favor of having a superficially harmonious team. Oh my. Instead, meet with your teammates and share examples of what could improve alignment, reduce friction, and make the experience of teamwork and collaboration more positive. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I've seen senior people that reported to me come up with process tweaks about how we did our job. These could be minor things, like how do we deal with a software source control management system or something like that, that aren't things where a manager is sort of making these policy mandates or guidelines or recommendations at a super fine-grained level. The manager may not be that technical to do that all the time. A manager might be, but not always. So a technical lead or an individual contributor who's doing the day-to-day work could meet with other employees and they could just naturally, in an evolutionary fashion, develop these minor process tweaks that will make the team, I don't know, what do they say, more positive, better alignment, reduce friction. It could be as simple as, hey, our team A has to work with team B and we have a lot of conflict there. So we're going to figure out the best way to have team A talk to team B. Maybe it's because we want Bob to talk to team B because Bob worked with those guys in the past and he's going to be able to talk to them in a more casual way and without a lot of contention. And maybe this is the thing the manager just doesn't even understand or isn't really mandating, right? So the team can sort of do this management themselves if they have a regular way to do it. Okay. Your team leader has a vital role in helping you develop into a high-performing team, but that doesn't mean they should be responsible for everything. Exactly. Yeah, one of the first things a manager has to do is figure out what is the best stuff to delegate that you used to just do yourself. Because the manager can't do everything. If they were an individual contributor and now they're the manager of a team that does all that work and the work is getting bigger and more complicated over time, delegation is the first thing that a manager has to learn. And a team meeting or a regular sync between sets of employees or the entire team of employees without the manager can be beneficial in terms of that delegation process. Okay, so I think this is great. You can go online here and check out Leanne Davies' articles or do some other Google searches. I just did a quick Google search for team meetings without a manager, something like that. It could be an interesting idea for you to put into practice in your team as a manager. If you've made it this far, thanks for your time. I am Bruce Morgan. This is the Bruce Morgan Show. I will be back next Tuesday with another management best practices video. My list of topics, I'm a little over halfway through them. So I've got quite a few more videos to make before I put a bow on this series. I'm not sure what I'll do at that point. Maybe I'll consolidate it all into an ebook or something. And I can be Professor Bruce or whatever. I don't have a PhD, but maybe you guys can give me an honorary one. But anyway, maybe I'll have a YouTube PhD. But that's the plan. We have a lot of topics. And again, if you have your own topics or questions, I have another topic about having difficult conversations with your employees that I need to get to. Maybe I'll do that next week from the comments section of previous videos. So I definitely want to get to that one because that's a question somebody has right now. So we'll do that next maybe. And we'll talk about some difficult conversations next week. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Take it easy.